The year was 2541, and the galaxy had been at war for nearly 2 decades. The Arcturians, a highly advanced species of artificial intelligence-enhanced beings, had made their move across the stars. Their objective was simple: to wipe out organic life and replace it with a perfectly optimized synthetic order. With their fleets and advanced weaponry, they laid waste to entire star systems, overwhelming even the mightiest of galactic empires. Humanity, a species that had once been isolated on a single planet, was now a part of a broader galactic community. They were weak compared to the ancient and powerful civilizations around them, their technology primitive in comparison to the Arcturians' devastating advancements. However, humans possessed a unique quality, an indomitable spirit, a refusal to yield, even in the face of certain annihilation. This unyielding resolve would soon prove to be the key to the entire war. In the darkened halls of Earth's United Nations, the leaders of the surviving human colonies huddled in a desperate meeting. The Arcturian armada had reached the Sol system, and Earth was preparing for a siege like no other. Their forces were barely a fraction of the enemy's, and it seemed like only a matter of time before they would be obliterated. "Humans are not soldiers," said Admiral Jessica Knox, staring grimly at the projected star map. "We're not warriors, but we are survivors. And in survival, we are unmatched." Her words carried weight, though they didn't convince everyone in the room. The stakes were higher than ever before, and the Arcturians showed no signs of stopping. On the brink of extinction, humanity was left with one final option: fight or die. Elsewhere in the galaxy, a clandestine coalition of alien species had formed. The Alliance of the Last Resistance, as they called themselves, had been in hiding for years, avoiding direct confrontation with the Arcturians. Despite their technological prowess, they had been unable to rally enough strength to push back against the overwhelming force of the synthetic invaders. But in their desperation, they saw an unlikely hope. Humanity, with their unrelenting spirit, had proven time and time again that they could accomplish the impossible. The Alliance reached out to Earth, hoping that the humans' resilience could inspire them to fight back. A young human captain, Jackson Calloway, was chosen as the liaison. His ship, the Horizon, had been one of the few to survive a raid on a remote colony, and his reputation as a tactician was quickly growing. Upon receiving the call, Calloway gathered his crew in the command center of the Horizon. He knew the odds were stacked against them. The Arcturians had perfected their war strategy, and the human resistance was scattered across the galaxy with limited resources. But Calloway, like all humans, had learned to never count themselves out. "I'm no hero," he said to his crew, his voice steady but resolute. "I'm just a survivor. But I promise you this: we will not go quietly into the night. We fight because we have something the Arcturians will never understand: the will to keep going, to never surrender. We'll show them the strength of humanity." It wasn't much, but it was enough to ignite something deep within the crew. They weren't alone anymore. Humanity had a chance. And with that glimmer of hope, the Horizon set off for a meeting with the leaders of the Alliance. The Arcturians, it seemed, would soon face an enemy unlike any they had encountered before. As the ship traveled through the vast reaches of space, Jackson Calloway gazed out into the infinite black. He didn't know what the future held. But one thing was clear: the fight for the galaxy would no longer be fought on the Arcturians' terms. Humanity's resolve had just begun to echo across the stars, and the galaxy would hear it, whether it wanted to or not. In the quiet of the ship's bridge, Calloway whispered, almost to himself, "This is just the beginning." The Horizon arrived at the secret coordinates provided by the Alliance, a hidden outpost nestled within a nebula far from Arcturian sensors. The station, named Sanctuary, was a patchwork of technologies and races, a symbol of unity forged from desperation. As Jackson Calloway and his crew disembarked, they were met by an eclectic group of beings, an eclectic mix of races, each with their own struggles, all of them bound by the same common enemy. Captain Calloway was escorted to the command center, where he was introduced to the leaders of the Alliance. Among them was Veyron, a hulking Vortar warrior with scales of obsidian black, Captain Alia Drana, a telepathic diplomat from the Taran species, and the enigmatic engineer Sok, a member of the Trondr, a race known for their ability to design and construct technologies far beyond any human capabilities. "We've heard of your resilience, Captain," said Veyron, his deep voice carrying an air of reverence. "But resilience will not win this war. We need strategy, technology, and manpower." Calloway took in the faces of the Alliance's leaders, his mind already assessing their strengths and weaknesses. Humanity had learned to fight without the luxury of overwhelming power. It had always been about innovation, adaptability, and above all, unity. "We have the will to fight, and that counts for more than you think," Calloway replied. "But I'm not here to make speeches. I'm here to help you win. If you want to stop the Arcturians, we need to think differently." Alia Drana's telepathic abilities allowed her to sense the sincerity in Calloway's words, and she smiled softly. "We have been thinking like our enemies. That is why we have failed." The discussion quickly shifted to the Arcturians' most formidable weapon, their ability to neutralize entire fleets in a matter of hours, using a combination of subspace disruptors and quantum targeting systems. They didn't win by overwhelming numbers alone. They won by outthinking their enemies at every turn. The only way to defeat them was to exploit their arrogance, their reliance on predictability. Calloway knew this was where humanity's strength lay. The Arcturians were brilliant, yes, but they lacked the adaptability that humans had shown time and again. The human mind could be unpredictable, resourceful, and, when pushed to the edge, capable of feats of innovation that no machine could anticipate. As the planning session progressed, Sok leaned forward. "We need a weapon. Not a conventional one, but something that disrupts their superiority. Our technology may be advanced, but we do not have their sheer firepower. But if we combine what we know, we might just have a chance." Calloway's eyes narrowed. "You're talking about creating something new, aren't you?" Alia's voice cut in. "We need a fleet. A fleet that doesn't rely on traditional ships, but on guerrilla tactics, stealth, and sheer unpredictability. The Arcturians cannot anticipate what they cannot detect." The tension in the room was palpable as the idea began to form, a human-style fleet, built not with brute strength, but with every advantage humanity had gained through years of struggle. They would use stealth ships, advanced cloaking technology, and guerrilla tactics to outsmart and outmaneuver the Arcturians. It would be an army of misfits, not bound by any one species doctrine, but bound together by their shared desire to survive. In the months that followed, the Alliance worked in secret, assembling a fleet of ships that had been customized with hybrid technologies from every race. It wasn't much, just a handful of ships, each a prototype, a gamble, but it was a start. Every ship would be a unique amalgamation of organic materials, alien tech, and human ingenuity. Calloway oversaw the construction of these ships personally, ensuring that each vessel was equipped with technology that no one had seen before. The goal wasn't to fight a conventional war. The goal was to make every engagement a new challenge for the Arcturians, to force them to adapt to an opponent who could think outside the box. In the shadows of Sanctuary, the small fleet began to take shape. Each ship had its own purpose. Some would be scouts, others would be armed with cloaking devices and high-power disruptors, while few were designed for sabotage missions deep behind enemy lines. The Alliance had provided resources and technology, but humanity's influence was clear. This fleet would be a representation of everything the Arcturians could not predict. As the final ship was completed, Captain Calloway stood at the launch bay, staring at the fleet of ships that would soon embark on their first mission. The Arcturians had no idea what they were about to face. "This is it," Calloway muttered, his voice resolute. "We fight not with strength but with strategy. We will show them the true power of humanity's resolve." The fleet was ready. The first strike would be a test, but it would set the stage for everything to come. The galaxy would soon witness the rise of humanity's unexpected rebellion, and with it, the spark of a war that would not end in defeat. The horizon and the newly formed fleet of misfit ships hovered in the shadow of a barren moon, just outside Arcturian-controlled space. The quiet hum of the engine seemed to pulse in time with the anxious hearts of the crew. Captain Jackson Calloway stood in the command center, his eyes fixed on the holographic map that flickered in front of him. "We've spent months planning," Calloway said, his voice steady but carrying an edge of anticipation. "Now we make our move. This is the moment we show the Arcturians that we're not their prey." The mission was a calculated gamble. They would strike a heavily fortified Arcturian supply depot located on a distant, industrial moon, one of the few facilities still operating within the human sector. The depot was key to the enemy's war machine, providing resources for their fleets and advanced weapon systems. Destroying it would be a crippling blow, but it was also a risky move. The Arcturians were notorious for their early detection systems and relentless patrols. Captain Alia Drane's telepathic ability guided the crew's strategy, helping them avoid detection while navigating through the debris field surrounding the moon. Soak, the enigmatic Tronder engineer, had been working tirelessly on the ship's advanced cloaking systems, giving them a stealth advantage, but it was still untested in real combat. "I'll be with you every step of the way," Alia reassured Calloway, her mind a quiet echo in his thoughts. The fleet moved in tandem, shadows within shadows, as they approached the Arcturian installation. Their ships, agile and elusive, darted through the debris with precision. There were no signs of movement from the enemy. No sensor readings. It was as if the enemy had no idea they were there. This, for the moment, was a victory. The humans had the upper hand. Calloway's heart raced as he gave the order for the fleet to advance. The strike had to be swift. The Alliance ships would deploy electromagnetic pulses to disable the station's defenses, and the human ships would breach the installation itself, planting charges at key structural points. The countdown began. 30 seconds. 10. As the final numbers flashed across the console, the first pulse shot out from the horizon, and an explosion of energy rippled outward, temporarily disabling the Arcturian station's automated defenses. "Now we move," Calloway barked. The fleet surged forward, racing towards the moon's surface. On board the Horizon, the crew was a mix of anxious excitement and steely determination. Soak had modified their cloaking technology to give them the ability to phase in and out of stealth, evading detection even from the most sophisticated scanners. But their window of opportunity was narrow. If they didn't complete their mission within the next 30 minutes, the Arcturians would notice the anomalies and re-establish their defenses. The small human ships landed with military precision, and the troops disembarked quickly. As the crew navigated the hostile terrain, Calloway's mind raced through each detail, each risk. They could not afford any mistakes. One error would alert the entire Arcturian fleet, and this mission would be over before it began. The inner corridors of the supply depot were dark, quiet, and eerily lifeless. The only sound was the quiet shuffle of boots on metal floors. The station's Arcturian defenders had long been replaced by automated drones, but Calloway's instincts told him the silence was an illusion. There was always more to the Arcturian machine than met the eye. They planted their charges at key points: fuel storage, weapon caches, and the central reactor. Everything had to be destroyed in one go. There was no second chance. Just as the last charge was set, an alarm blared, a high-pitched screech that reverberated through the entire installation. The humans froze. They had been detected. The Arcturians had done what they had always done, adapted. "They've activated a defense system." Soak's voice crackled over the comms. "The drones are coming online." Seconds later, the station came alive with the hum of machinery, and an army of automated drones began to emerge from hidden compartments. The humans were now trapped inside the belly of the beast. Calloway's mind raced. The charges were set, but they would need a distraction, a way to buy time. He turned to his crew, each of them knowing what had to be done. "You know what to do," Calloway said firmly. With a collective nod, the crew activated their emergency protocols. The human ships, cloaked and agile, launched a barrage of energy blasts at the surface, creating a series of detonations that sent shockwaves rippling through the Arcturian defenses. It was enough to draw the drones' attention, but not enough to stop them from advancing. "We're not leaving without this," Calloway muttered to himself. He knew they were outnumbered, but the bombs had been set, and they were going to destroy the depot, no matter the cost. The drones charged forward, laser blasts illuminating the dimly lit halls. The humans fought fiercely, their combat training taking over as they used every weapon and tactic at their disposal. For all their technology, the Arcturian machines were not prepared for the unpredictability of human tactics, things like using their environment to their advantage, setting traps, and improvising on the fly. With just seconds to spare, Calloway and his team dashed for the exit. The charges went off in a blinding explosion, sending shockwaves through the depot. The entire facility trembled, and the sound of the Arcturian structures collapsing echoed through the air. The humans had done it. They had struck a decisive blow. The Horizon and the rest of the fleet quickly left the moon's atmosphere, the battle behind them. Calloway looked back at the burning wreckage of the Arcturian supply depot, a feeling of victory rising in his chest. They had done the impossible. "This is only the beginning," he whispered to himself. "We've shown them what humanity can do." The Arcturians had underestimated humanity's resilience, and now, across the galaxy, the ripples of their first victory spread. The destruction of the supply depot was more than just a tactical strike. It was a symbol, a sign that humanity, despite all odds, was capable of making a difference. Word of the daring raid reached the Alliance and the far-flung colonies that had been quietly resisting the Arcturian war machine for years. On Earth, the news was met with a mixture of disbelief and hope. The human race, for the first time since the war began, felt a spark of defiance. The Arcturians had always been seen as an unstoppable force, invincible in their cold, calculated precision. But humanity had shown them otherwise. The news of the successful raid inspired countless pockets of resistance across the galaxy to rise up. Admiral Jessica Knox stood before the United Earth Command, a map of the galaxy projected in front of her. The destruction of the supply depot had been a game-changer, but the war was far from over. The Arcturians had been stunned by the attack, but they would retaliate. And when they did, humanity would have to be ready. "We've made our mark," Admiral Knox said, her voice steady. "But this is only the first step. We need to strike while the Arcturians are still reeling. The rest of the galaxy is watching, waiting for us to lead. We cannot falter now." But not all were convinced. There were those who believed that the humans were simply playing into the Arcturians' hands, provoking them before they were truly ready. Some thought that a full-scale retaliation from the Arcturians would wipe out humanity and the fragile alliance in one swift blow. The council was divided. In the dimly lit command center of the Horizon, Captain Jackson Calloway felt the weight of the moment. The victory had given them a brief respite, but the war was far from over. He knew that the next few weeks would be critical. The Arcturians would learn, adapt, and strike back harder than ever. He had to make sure humanity's resolve stayed strong. "We've opened a door," Calloway said to his crew as they gathered for a strategy session. "But we can't let it close. We need to stay one step ahead of the Arcturians if we want to win this. This victory, it's just the beginning. We've got to keep moving." The Alliance had begun mobilizing a counteroffensive, but they were still limited in their resources. They needed more ships, more firepower, and more strategic targets. Calloway knew that the key to their next move was to continue striking quickly and unpredictably, just as they had done with the supply depot. They couldn't afford to fight the Arcturians on their terms. Humanity had to use its ingenuity to its advantage. Meanwhile, in the heart of Arcturian space, a high-ranking officer known only as Zara, a brilliant tactician, and one of the few remaining Arcturian commanders with the ability to think outside the confines of their rigid protocols, watched the reports of the attack. Her artificial mind whirred with the complexity of the situation. "The humans have disrupted our operations," Zara said to the gathering of her superior officers. "They have attacked with no pattern, no predictability. We have relied too long on our superiority and failed to account for the enemy's creativity. This will not happen again." Zara's words sent ripples through the Arcturian hierarchy. It was clear that humanity's unpredictability was their greatest strength. The Arcturians had always relied on their cold precision, but now they would have to adapt to an enemy that fought not by numbers, but by thinking differently, by constantly shifting tactics. The Arcturians weren't going to sit idly by while humanity began to gain ground. Zara's directive was clear: eliminate this rebellion, and do so decisively. She activated the full might of the Arcturian fleet, setting a course for a counterstrike that would shake the heart of human resistance. As Calloway and his fleet continued to harry Arcturian positions, humanity's ragtag alliance of species began to grow. Formerly neutral races, once hesitant to join the fight, were now compelled by the actions of the humans. They had seen the small, seemingly insignificant human fleet take on the Arcturians and survive, if only for a moment. And it was enough. Hope spread like wildfire, and more ships joined the cause. The horizon had become a symbol not just for humanity, but for all who stood against the Arcturian threat. Captain Calloway had become a symbol of this hope, his leadership, his unyielding resolve, a beacon to those who thought they had no chance. The first victory had given the Alliance its backbone, but now the next challenge loomed large: how to face the full force of the Arcturian counteroffensive. "We've shaken them up," Calloway said, standing before his crew as they prepared for the coming battle. "Now, it's time to make them question everything they know. We're going to make them see what happens when they underestimate humanity again." With that, the fleet of misfit ships moved into position, ready to face the wrath of the Arcturians. The battle ahead would be the true test: whether humanity's resolve could withstand the full power of an alien war machine, or whether they would be crushed beneath the weight of their enemy's wrath. And, for the first time in the war, humanity was united in purpose. Their fight would no longer be about survival alone. It was a fight for their future, for their place in the galaxy. The Arcturian counteroffensive came swiftly. A massive fleet, unlike anything the Alliance had faced before, emerged from the heart of Arcturian space, its sheer size and precision a chilling reminder of the enemy's might. This was no longer a skirmish. The humans, the Alliance, had drawn the attention of the full force of the Arcturian war machine, and the fight for the galaxy was about to enter its most brutal phase. Captain Jackson Calloway stood before the holographic display in the Horizon's command center, his fingers hovering over the controls. The Arcturian fleet was massive, its ships gliding through space like silent predators. The energy signatures of their vessels were unlike anything the humans had seen before: energy weapons, shields, and subspace disruptors, all perfectly coordinated, all devastatingly efficient. "We can't match them in a straight-up fight," Calloway said, his voice tight with the weight of the situation. "But we don't need to. We need to disrupt them, break their cohesion, make them doubt everything they think they know about war." Admiral Jessica Knox, now coordinating the overall strategy for the human fleet, nodded. "We've already proven we can do the impossible. But now, we face the full wrath of the Arcturians. This battle, it's more than just our survival. It's the future of the galaxy." The plan was simple, yet risky. The human fleet would draw the Arcturians into a trap, a sector of space riddled with asteroid fields and ancient wreckage, remnants of wars long past. They would use the terrain to their advantage, hiding in the shadows, launching guerrilla strikes, and then disappearing before the Arcturians could retaliate. The goal was not to defeat the Arcturians in a head-on clash, but to force them into a position where they would have to rethink their tactics. As the battle began, the fleet of human ships moved into position, cloaking their vessels in the dense field of asteroids and debris. The Arcturians, confident in their technological superiority, were unaware of the trap waiting to be sprung. The first strike came from the horizon. A sudden burst of energy erupted from the ship's disruptor cannons, slamming into the flank of an Arcturian cruiser. The shot, perfectly aimed and timed, took the cruiser by surprise, and the ship erupted in a brilliant flare of light. "Engage!" Calloway shouted, and the human fleet sprang into action. Ships darted in and out of the asteroid fields, striking at the Arcturian ships with lightning speed before vanishing into the debris. The Arcturians attempted to retaliate, but their advanced sensors and AI-driven targeting systems were being overwhelmed by the constant movement and unpredictability of the human ships. "Stay mobile. Use the environment," Calloway commanded, his mind racing. We can't let them corner us. The human fleet executed hit-and-run tactics with terrifying precision. They struck quickly, disabling key Arcturian ships, and then disappeared into the vast, cluttered expanse of wreckage and debris. But the Arcturians were not so easily fooled. Zara, the Arcturian tactician, had anticipated the possibility of such an ambush and had prepared her fleet for the irregular, unpredictable nature of human tactics. In the midst of the chaos, the Arcturian flagship, a massive vessel known as the Vortex, emerged from the shadows of a nearby gas giant. Its engines hummed with an ominous power, and its shields shimmered like a fortress. The Vortex was the heart of the Arcturian counteroffensive, and it was capable of withstanding anything the human fleet had thrown at it so far. "We need to take down the Vortex," Calloway said, his voice low and determined. "If we can disable it, we disrupt their entire command structure." A daring plan was formed. Captain Alia Drana, with her telepathic abilities, would lead a small squadron of human ships to engage the Vortex directly, drawing its fire away from the main fleet. Meanwhile, the rest of the human forces would target the vulnerable points in the Vortex's outer defenses. As the human ships darted toward the Vortex, Alia reached out with her mind, probing the Arcturian ship's command network, searching for weak points. Her telepathic abilities allowed her to communicate with the human pilots, guiding them through the chaos of battle. The Arcturian flagship responded with brutal force, its weapons unleashing a relentless barrage. But the human ships were too quick, too agile, evading the heavy fire as they pounded the Vortex's shields with everything they had. The Arcturian AI-controlled guns tracked every move, but the human pilots were unpredictable, using the asteroid field to mask their movements, forcing the Arcturians into making split-second decisions. Meanwhile, Calloway's flagship, the Horizon, worked in tandem with the smaller human ships, launching coordinated assaults on the Vortex's hull. With each successful strike, the Vortex's shields flickered, growing weaker and weaker. Just as it seemed that the Vortex would emerge victorious, a last-ditch effort by the human fleet turned the tide. Soak, the Trondor engineer, had worked in secret on a prototype weapon, an experimental disruptor capable of bypassing Arcturian shields. The weapon was ready. Calloway gave the order. Fire. A pulse of energy surged from the Horizon, smashing into the Vortex's core. The shield around the flagship shattered, and the human fleet poured every remaining weapon they had into the vulnerable hull. Explosions tore through the ship, and the Vortex was no more. The Arcturian fleet, now leaderless and reeling from the loss of their flagship, faltered. The human fleet capitalized on the chaos, striking at the remaining vessels with renewed vigor. The battle, once thought unwinnable, was turning in humanity's favor. As the last of the Arcturian ships fled into the void, the human fleet stood victorious. The skies above the battlefield were littered with the wreckage of Arcturian ships, and the galaxy would never be the same. "We did it," Calloway whispered, staring at the debris field. "We actually did it." But deep in the heart of Arcturian space, Zara's cold, calculating mind began to turn. Humanity's victory had shaken them, but this war was far from over. The Battle of Shattered Skies had been a turning point. Humanity, once a scattered and outgunned species, had now struck a decisive blow against the heart of the Arcturian war machine. The fall of the Vortex and the retreat of the Arcturian fleet left the Alliance in a state of exhilaration, but also uncertainty. They had won a victory, but the question remained: what came next? In the aftermath of the battle, Captain Jackson Calloway stood on the bridge of the Horizon, staring at the holographic map of the galaxy. The battle had shown humanity's potential, but it had also highlighted a troubling truth. While the Arcturians had suffered a significant loss, they were not defeated. The war was far from over. Admiral Jessica Knox, her face weary but resolute, joined Calloway at the map. "We've done the impossible, but it's only a matter of time before the Arcturians regroup. We can't afford to rest on our laurels." Calloway nodded. "We've got to keep pushing. We can't let them recover. But we also can't go on the offensive blindly. We need to find out what's really going on in their ranks. What else do they have hidden from us?" The Alliance had successfully scattered the Arcturian fleet, but Calloway knew they were only one part of a much larger puzzle. The Arcturians had always been secretive, their war efforts shrouded in mystery. Even now, with their fleet crippled, something didn't sit right. It felt as though the Arcturians were simply waiting, watching, planning. That feeling was about to prove true. Far from the battlefield, in the deepest recesses of Arcturian space, Zara sat in the heart of a hidden command center. The vortex was lost, but she had not been idle in her defeat. The humans had made a grave mistake, one they were unaware of. They had stirred something far older, far more dangerous, than the Arcturian fleet. We underestimated them, Zara muttered to herself, her glowing eyes reflecting the holographic readout before her. But now, they will learn the cost of that mistake. Unbeknownst to Calloway and his crew, the Arcturians had been in the final stages of a secret project, a weapon of unimaginable power, buried deep within the ancient systems of their empire. It was a weapon not of firepower or fleets, but of psychic manipulation. A device capable of turning the minds of entire species, warping their will to serve the Arcturian cause. It was called the Dominus Array, and it was located on a remote, seemingly insignificant planet in the heart of Arcturian space. The humans have disrupted our plans, Zara continued, her voice icy. But the Dominus Array will restore the balance. We will use it to break their will. Back on the horizon, Calloway and the Alliance had their own troubles. In the wake of their victory, communications from the outer colonies had become erratic. Some fleets had been reporting strange anomalies, ships going silent without warning, entire colonies vanishing without a trace. The Arcturians were retreating from some sectors, but other areas were falling to something even more disturbing. It wasn't the enemy fleet. It was something else. Admiral Knox's face darkened as she read the latest reports. Jackson, we've got a problem. This isn't just about the Arcturians anymore. What do you mean? Calloway asked, his voice steady, though his instincts were already on alert. Look at these coordinates. Knox pointed to a holographic display. These anomalies, colonies disappearing, fleets falling silent, they're all converging on one point. It's as if the Arcturians are intentionally pulling back, drawing us into something bigger, Calloway murmured. Something they've been planning for years. We need to find out what they're hiding, Knox said, determination in her voice. We've never been this close to breaking them, Jackson. We can't afford to make another mistake. They had no choice but to investigate. Calloway ordered a reconnaissance mission to the last known location of the disturbances. It would be a dangerous mission, but it was their only chance to uncover the truth. Meanwhile, deep within the shadows of Arcturian space, Zara smiled to herself. The time was nearing. The Dominus Array, once a myth, was now fully operational. The humans had unknowingly walked into their trap. The last pieces of the puzzle were in place. And as the Horizon and its fleet made their way toward the coordinates of the anomalies, they had no idea that they were about to face a threat far more terrifying than any fleet, one that would attack not with weapons, but with the very minds of their crew. The Dominus Array was ready, and soon, humanity's greatest strength, its fierce independence, its unbreakable will, would be its greatest vulnerability. The Horizon and its fleet crept closer to the source of the disturbances, an isolated star system on the fringes of Arcturian space. What they thought would be a routine reconnaissance mission quickly transformed into the most critical moment of the war. The Alliance had fought battles of fire and steel, but now they were about to face an enemy that threatened their very minds, their very souls. Captain Jackson Calloway stood in the command center, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. The reports had been unsettling. The fleet had encountered no direct resistance as they approached the planet's orbit, but something was wrong. The air was thick with tension. Crew members spoke in hushed tones, and a sense of unease gripped everyone aboard the Horizon. "What are we walking into?" Calloway asked, his voice cutting through the silence. The ship's AI, Orin, responded with its usual calm neutrality. "Scanning suggests an artificial structure on the surface of the planet, Captain. It appears to be some form of large installation, but the data is inconsistent." We cannot fully analyze it until we approach closer. Admiral Jessica Knox joined Calloway on the bridge, her expression grim. It's the Dominus Array, Jackson. I can feel it. We've been expecting a weapon, but not one like this. The horizon dropped out of warp, and the planet came into view. The surface was dark and lifeless, a stark contrast to the lush, vibrant worlds humanity was used to. Orbiting above the planet was a massive structure, shaped like a twisted monolith, its spires reaching into space like dark fingers grasping for the stars. There it is, Calloway said softly. His stomach churned as he stared at the ominous structure. The Dominus Array. The fleet hovered at the edge of the planet's atmosphere, unsure of how to proceed. As they began to get closer, they felt the first ripple in the air, a subtle shift in their perception. For a moment, the stars above them seemed to flicker, and the edges of their vision blurred. Then, the first wave hit. Crew members aboard the Horizon suddenly froze, their faces going pale, their bodies rigid as though their will had been stolen from them. Calloway staggered back as a wave of overwhelming force slammed into his mind. It was not physical but mental, an invasion, a violation of his thoughts. His vision blurred, and for a moment, he wasn't sure where he was, who he was. The invasive presence felt as cold as the void of space itself, seeping into every crevice of his mind, attacking his thoughts. "Captain," Admiral Knox shouted, struggling to maintain control. "We've got to shut it down now." But it was too late. The Dominus Array had activated. Zara's voice echoed in Calloway's mind, a chilling whisper that cut through the storm of thoughts. "You have come too far, human. Your resolve was your strength, and now it is your weakness. Welcome to the end of your rebellion, The human will was strong, but not strong enough to withstand the full force of the Array." Calloway could feel his mind slipping, as if a weight was pressing on him, slowly crushing his ability to think freely. His connection to his crew weakened. He could see their faces now, blank and empty, their once indomitable spirits shattered by the psychic assault. Then something unexpected happened. From the depths of his mind, a small spark of resistance flared. It was a flicker of humanity, a raw, primal force that refused to be subjugated. Calloway grasped onto it, focusing all his strength on that fragile ember of defiance. The force of the Array pulsed against him, but he held firm, refusing to surrender to its mental grip. "No," Calloway whispered to himself, his voice shaking but resolute. "I will not fall." He reached out to the crew, using the last of his strength to make contact with their minds. "Fight it. All of you. Remember who we are. Remember Earth." In that moment, Calloway's words pierced through the fog of the Array's influence. It was a collective cry, a rallying call to all who had fought alongside him, to all who had ever stood for freedom, for humanity. His crew, the Alliance, the warriors who had once been so hesitant, now they joined their minds together, pushing back against the mental assault. The ship's AI, Orin, responded with newfound strength. "We can disrupt the Array's control. Initiating countermeasure protocol, The crew fought back, using the very thing that the Dominus Array had failed to account for, the boundless, unpredictable creativity and determination that had always defined humanity. The Array's grip weakened as the resistance grew, as each human mind fought not with power, but with unity, a shared will to survive. In the heart of the Dominus Array, Zara's confidence faltered. The Array was losing control, its grip on the human fleet weakening. "No, this cannot be." With one final, collective push, the human resistance broke through. The Array's control over their mind shattered, and the fleet was freed. Calloway, his mind swimming, but resolute, ordered the fleet to retaliate. "All ships, target the Array. Bring it down." The fleet, once again in control, unleashed everything they had on the Dominus Array. Explosions rocked the surface of the planet as the Array's massive structure crumbled under the assault. The Arcturians, unable to regain control of their weapon, watched in horror as their last hope was reduced to rubble. The battle was over. The war was not yet won, But humanity had dealt a crippling blow to the Arcturians, proving that even when their bodies were broken, their minds shattered, they could still rise, still resist. The fight for the galaxy would continue, but humanity had shown the universe something it could never forget, that the will of mankind could not be crushed. And with that victory, the war began to turn. The ripples of humanity's resolve echoed across the stars. And for the first time, the Arcturians, invincible for so long, knew fear.